Hello and welcome to another Nantucket edition of Your Creative Midlife. I'm Betsy Bush. I'm going to tell you the title of this so you get a sense of what's coming up. Did a family ghost lure me to Nantucket? So, a common question when you meet someone new here on Nantucket is, how long have you been coming here? Often you'll hear, oh, since I was a kid, or I worked here in the summer during college. How about you? Some people are surprised when I say, well, our first trip to Nantucket was in September 2020, when the island was basically shut down during COVID. Yeah, we traveled during COVID. We stayed in town at the Veranda House, yes, the same Veranda House that burned down 2 years later, to walk these streets with the old weather-beaten houses along the narrow lanes, all shut up, virtually no people in town. Main Street almost deserted, was a very different introduction to Nantucket than one we'll ever have again. Nantucket's past seemed very, very close to us. One shop that was open was Mitchell's Book Corner. Browsing the vast selection, I focused on Nantucket history and made an interesting choice. Blue Balliet's Nantucket Ghosts, 44 True Accounts. Taking it back to our deserted hotel, where we saw no one else. Indeed, breakfast materialized each morning in a brown paper bag outside our door. I devoured the book. It was so easy to imagine how thin was the veil between the current generation of Nantucketers and those of ages past. One day, we grabbed some bikes and cycled out to Sconset, where we spent some time on the beach and loved it. So when we left the island, I made a mental note to check house rentals for the next summer. That next June, with the world opening up again, we spent 3 weeks in a little house in Codfish Park. If you've ever been to Sconset when the roses are blooming, you know what we experienced. Pure enchantment. Gorgeous roses trellised against the tiny weathered cottages with their little doors and windows. It was pure heaven. The Sconset Market was open, as was Claudette's Sandwich Shop, and the Wave stopped nearby to take us into town whenever we wanted. What more could we ask for? We could ask if there was a house we could buy. A bold question because we knew we couldn't afford very much. But there was something, a cottage in the neighborhood around the summer house. The realtor we worked with to get the summer rental quickly arranged a viewing. Hidden from the street behind a tall hedge was the cottage of our dreams. A little tumble down, to be sure, but mostly in its original state. It would need some work, but we have owned old houses before. We made an offer and bought it. I promised you a ghost, so here it is. The morning of the closing, which was on Halloween 2021, we made our walk through the house before signing the papers. Our seller, who had owned the house for 40 years, gave us a handwritten list of owners of the property starting in 1901, when the property was sold to a woman named Caroline Parker Hills. I only caught a glimpse of this sheet of paper, but later, when it was all over and the house was ours, I asked my husband, that sheet that showed the property owners, wasn't there a woman named Hills? He looked at me and said only, yes. Here's why. My maiden name is Hills. Could there possibly be a connection between my dad's family and Caroline Parker Hills' family? Did we inadvertently purchase some ancestral land? Was I drawn here because some hidden force brought us here? After all, this was the only house we looked at. We saw it and said yes. My husband also knows that I have a slight interest in the paranormal. Remember the ghost stories I bought at Mitchell's? I actually asked our seller during that last walkthrough if the house was haunted. Husband rolled his eyes. Seller said, well, I've never seen one, but a friend who stayed here told me he woke up once in the night and saw a lady in white coming towards him. He waved it away and she disappeared. Could the lady in white have been Caroline Parker Hills? I'm happy to say I have never seen a ghost. But Caroline Parker Hills turns out to be an interesting personage on Nantucket. She came to Nantucket with her son, Isaac Hills Jr., from Rochester, after the death of her second husband, Isaac Hills. Caroline was an accomplished pianist who had traveled widely in Europe. When she came to Nantucket in the 1880s, it must have seemed very far away from those glittering capitals, and yet it was also a refuge after the deaths of two husbands. In 1895, she published a small book, A Nantucket Hermitage and Other Poems, that expressed the relief she must have felt. From the mainland far away to the island and its spray, to the heaving waves that bound it, to the wealth of waters round it, give to me the peace and rest that I find on ocean's breast. Weary miles I've lonely traveled, long the thread of life unraveled. She was also a businesswoman. She and her son bought and developed properties. She built a fantastical house at 23 Cliff Road called Rochester Lodge that was too elaborate to withstand Nantucket weather, and it was demolished in the 30s. Her most lasting home was Cliff Lodge that still today celebrates her 50-year residence there. But she and Isaac Jr. also bought land in Sconset, building what would become the Sconset Cottage Club at the corner of Ocean Avenue and Hills Avenue, now Magnolia Avenue, on the south side of the current summer house. Rudder Grange, the house with its distinctive Empire-style roof on Ocean Avenue, was once the dining room for the Sconset Cottage Club. And here, my house is only yards away from where this Hills family had lived and staked its claim. But the cottage business does not seem to have lasted very long. Some explanation for what came next is found in a reprint of Caroline's A Nantucket Hermitage that her great-granddaughter Mary Helen Hills Monroe combined with some of her own poems. In the introduction, Mary Helen tells about playing dress-up as a girl in Caroline's Victorian petticoats and skirts, and of hearing family stories. In the late teens and early 20s, Caroline had lost most of her properties to taxes, according to Mary Helen. Caroline died in 1922, just a week shy of her 98th birthday. She was the oldest person living on the island. Mary Helen also answers a question, are there any more Hills relatives on the island? Her family moved off during World War II to be with her father, who was in the Navy. So, here's the question. Am I related to this Hills family, this Isaac Hills family, Caroline's husband, and her son, Isaac Jr.? Well, my family happens to be one of those families that was always interested in genealogy. And here's what I found out. According to The Hills Family in America, published in 1906, I share a common ancestor with Isaac Hills. William Hills, born in Hartford, Connecticut in 1646. I am descended from William's son Joseph, born in 1683, and Caroline's husband was descended from William's son Ebenezer, born in 1676. My line went to Ohio. Isaac's line stayed in the East. That's going back something like 10 generations, almost biblical. I did send out a post to the Ask Nantucket Facebook group to see if there were any remaining Hills family on the island. I got a response from Carolyn Hills, who has lived here for 40 years and is the proprietor of Nantucket Island Weddings. We had a friendly, if brief, conversation. She's in the middle of wedding season, after all. And guess what? She has never heard of Caroline Parker Hills or even knew that there was another Hills family that was ever here. She is also a descendant of that long ago William Hills. We just need to meet up in the off-season to figure out where we all connect. I'll just end the story with this. We bought our house without really knowing what we were getting into. Several months into ownership, it became clear that we needed to jack up the house and put a crawl space for utilities underneath. It was a huge and expensive process, and you can imagine the anxiety we all felt. We came up one weekend in September 2022 and stayed at the Barnacle Inn across from St. Paul's. It was a beautiful time, and there was a wedding at the church, and we loved seeing the bridal party and guests process in and out. It was a time of excitement and new beginnings. We went to inspect the house up on its stilts, and then I said, let's go check out Hills Avenue, where Isaac Jr. had his cottage colony. That night, I had the most vivid dream I can ever remember having. I dreamed I saw my dad, who had died in 2014 at age 97, and who I know had never heard of Nantucket. I don't remember what we talked about, but I do remember him smiling, a big smile with twinkling eyes. Then I woke up astonished. I knew he was sending me a message. You're going to be all right, and I'm happy for you. Thanks for listening to this Nantucket edition of Your Creative Midlife, a podcast for late-blooming artists, writers, musicians, any and all creatives. And if you like us, please tell your friends, subscribe, and please leave a 5-star review. And visit yourcreativemidlife.com to learn more about me and my guests. I'm Betsy Bush.